I say mine. Make sure. That's what we do the outside as well. All right. I'm going to start my outside inspection. I will begin in front of the vehicle. First, I'm going to make sure that all lights are clean and functional, visible, not cracked, broken, or missing. Now, my clearance lights on my tractor and my trailer are amber in color. My turn signals are amber, and my four-way flashers are also amber in color. And my headlights, I will make sure my high and my low beams are functioning properly. Now, I'm going to open the hood. You release the safety latch on both sides. And with the foot on the bumper and two hands on the hood, kind of like 3 points of touch. And then we come over here on the right side. First, we check is the header bar. Now the trailer is going to be connected to the truck, so your header bar is going to be back there. Make sure it's not cracked or broken. Now, I'm going to check on my frame. Make sure my frame is not cracked or broken on frame or cross members. Anything that cracks is considered cross member. Number 2 will be my exhaust. I'm going to check, make sure it's not cracked or broken, properly mounted and secure. No leaks such as rust or soot, and make sure it's connected tightly. Next, drive shaft right here must be properly mounted and secure, not cracked or broken. U-joints should be properly mounted and secure and free of foreign objects. My catwalk and my steps, solid, clear of objects, properly mounted and secure, not cracked, bent, or broken. No illegal wheels, no oil or grease. Now, my fuel tank must be properly mounted and secure, not cracked, bent, or broken. Make sure my fuel cap is tight and there's no leaks coming from the fuel tank, the fuel cap, or the fuel lines. Lines will attach at both ends, no abrasion, bulges, or cuts. Now I'm going to check on my door. Make sure my door opens and closes properly, not cracked, broken. Door hinges must be properly mounted and secure, not cracked, broken, or missing nuts or bolts. The door seals and window seals must be intact. The windows must be clean and work properly. They must roll back down and up and down. And my mirrors and mirror brackets must be properly mounted and secure. Excuse me. Not cracked or broken. No loose fittings. And now the inspection I did on this side of the vehicle, on the fuel area, also applies to the other side. That part, I'm sure when you were here on the orientation, they told you about it. You only inspecting one side of the vehicle, not both. They don't want you to repeat yourself on both. Do a good job on one side, and then if you had the same thing over on the other side, make sure you explain that the inspection you did on this side applies to the other side. Fuel area, side of the trailer, brakes, suspension, axle, applies to the other side. All right, now we're gonna move to the engine compartment. Starting on this side, it's only 2 components. We're gonna start by checking the alternator, make sure it's properly mounted and secure, make sure that all wires are securely fastened, and it's belt driven. Checking the belt, make sure it's not cracked or frayed, and it has less than 3/4 of an inch play. The water pump is right here, must be properly mounted and secure, not leaking, also belt driven. The belt not cracked or frayed, make sure it has less than 3/4 of an inch of play. Moving to the coolant level, which is on this side. Now, we're checking on the coolant level. Make sure it is filled to proper level through the side glass or through the radiator cap. No leaks, properly mounted and secure. Now hoses and leaks. We're going to look at the ground for dripping fluids coming from the transmission or the engine. We're going to listen for any air leaks. And we also check in the hoses. All the hoses on the engine compartment, make sure they are well attached at both ends. And make sure there's no abrasions, bulges, or cuts or leaks. Now, my air compressor is located right here. Must be properly mounted and secure. No missing nuts or bolts. No leaks, oil or air. Now the air compressor is gear driven. Next, I'm going to check on my power steering fluid level. Make sure it is filled to proper level, about the fill mark in a normal operating range. The dipstick is located on the cap, or you can see it through the plastic. Must be properly mounted and secure, not leaking, and it's also gear driven. Next, I'm checking on my steering box and hoses, make sure they're properly mounted and secure, not leaking, no missing any nuts or bolts. Hoses well attached to vents, no abrasion, bulges, or cuts. Now, checking on my steering linkage, which consists in 4 components: steering column, pitman arm, drag link, and my tie rod must be properly mounted and secure, not cracked, bent, or broken. The U-joints and sockets also not worn or loose, no missing any nuts or bolts or safety pins. Next, I'll be checking on my front suspension, starting with the spring mounts. Make sure the spring mounts are not cracked, bent, or broken, properly mounted and secure, no missing nuts or bolts. The lift springs, not cracked, bent, or broken, properly mounted and secure. No more than a quarter missing or broken. The U-bolts, properly mounted and secure, not cracked, bent, or broken, or loose. The shocks, not leaking, not cracked, bent, or broken, properly mounted and secure. And this inspection also applies to the other side of the vehicle. Now we're going to check on the front brakes, starting with the brake chamber. Make sure the brake chambers are not leaking, not cracked, bent, or broken, properly mounted and secure, no loose or missing clamps. Now, the slack adjuster, which is this guy right here, make sure it's properly mounted and secure, not cracked, bent, or broken, no missing any nuts or bolts. And the push rod, this guy that goes inside the chamber is the push rod. Make sure it's not cracked, bent, or broken, it's properly mounted and secure, and should not move more than 1 inch when pulled by hand. You don't need to do it, I'm just showing you. Okay. Now, checking on my brake hoses and lines. These are my brake hoses. These are my brake lines. See? Brake lines, brake hoses. No abrasion, bulges, or cuts. The same thing on all hoses. And no leaks. Well attached at both ends. Now, I'm checking on the drums and linings. Drums, linings. Not cracked, bent, or broken. No loose or missing nuts or bolts. No oil or grease. And the lining should be at least a quarter of an inch thick. And this inspection also applies to the other side of the vehicle. Now, checking on my front axle. The tire depth must be 4/32 of an inch minimum. On fronts, no recaps allowed. They have to be original tires. And the condition must be evenly worn, no abrasion, bulges, or cuts on the tread or on the sidewalls. Checking now on the valve cap and stem. I will make sure it's not cracked, broken, or missing. And the inflation, I will use the tire gauge. And the inflation, I will look at the manufacturer's specifications. Now I'm checking on the rims, make sure my rims are not cracked, bent, or broken, or loose. I will make sure there is no weld in reverse and there is no rust. Checking now on my lug nuts, I will make sure they're all present, they're not cracked or distorted, and there is no signs of looseness such as rust or shiny threads. Now, checking on my hot oil seal and axle grease seals if it's not leaking any oil or grease. Now, if wheel has a side glass, I will make sure the oil level is at adequate level. And this inspection also applies to the other side of the vehicle. All right, so now we're going to move to the coupling system. Remember, the inside and the coupling system, you're going to do it no matter what, okay? Now, I just did basically Form A, which is the front of the vehicle, the engine, suspension, brakes, and axle. It doesn't include the fuel area, but the fuel area, it's for B. All right, so coupling system. Checking on the airlines. I will make sure there's no leaks, there's no abrasion, bulges, or cuts, and they will attach on both tractor and trailer ends. Checking also the glass hands, make sure they're not cracked, broken, or missing. No leaks. My electric line, which is the green one, I will make sure there's not cracked or frayed. Well insulated, and it's securely connected on the tractor and on the trailer. Now, moving to the fifth wheel skid plate. I will make sure the fifth wheel skid plate is properly lubricated and is well attached to the platform. No missing bolts or pins, not cracked or broken. The platform, properly mounted and secure, not cracked or broken. The mounting bolts, these little guys right here, not cracked or broken. No missing washers or nuts, not cracked, bent, or broken. The locking jaw, which is right here. I will make sure it's fully closed, holding the kingpin in place. Now the kingpin is on the trailer. It goes right here. Make sure it's fully closed, holding the kingpin in place, not cracked, broken, or missing. And the apron of the trailer, which is the hook plate that sits here, it's called the apron, not cracked, bent, or broken. And the kingpin, let me show you. The kingpin is this guy right here. This is where the locking jaw is going to go around, and this is what we call the apron. Make sure it's not cracked or broken, and there's no gap between the fifth wheel and the apron. It should be close, tight. All right. So now that concludes, let's say, the coupling system. But don't use that term when you're doing your inspection. Make sure you don't say that, just in case you miss something and you want to go back. You can. But if you say this concludes my fifth wheel, then you can't go back. You already concluded, right? Okay. So stay open. Leave everything open until you're done. All right. So now we're gonna continue with the rear of the vehicle. On the rear of the vehicle, we have the same as the front: suspension, brakes, and axle. So it's kind of repetition now. So we're gonna go ahead and start with the rear suspension. Make sure the spring mounts are not cracked, bent, or broken, properly mounted and secure, no missing any nuts or bolts. The lift springs, not cracked, bent, or broken, properly mounted and secure, no more than a quarter missing or broken. The U-bolts, properly mounted and secure, not cracked, bent, or broken, or loose. The shocks, properly mounted and secure, not cracked, bent, or broken, or leaking, no missing nuts or bolts. The airbags, we're gonna move to this truck. Airbags, some trucks do, some trucks don't. So this one we have airbags, so we're gonna make sure that they're properly mounted and secure, and there's no abrasion, bulges, or cuts, and no leaks. Now the torque arm, which is this guy right here, make sure it's properly mounted and secure. It's not cracked, bent, or broken, no missing any nuts or bolts. And same inspection applies to the other side. You notice there's more components on the suspension on the rear. We have the airbags and the torque arm. Now we're gonna move to the brakes. The rear brakes is called. Starting with the brake chamber, not leaking, not cracked, bent, or broken, properly mounted and secure, no loose or missing clamps. The slack adjuster right here must be properly mounted and secure, not cracked, bent, or broken, no missing any nuts or bolts. The push rod, this guy right here, properly mounted and secure, not cracked, bent, or broken, and should not move more than 2 inches when pulled by hand. That's the only difference between the front and rear, or the trailer. On the front, it's always going to be 1 inch. On the rear, or the trailer, it's 2 inches. Dual wheels, dual air brake chambers. 2 inches, okay? That's the only difference. Now, brake hoses and lines. Brake hoses, brake lines. No abrasion, bulges, or cuts, no leaks, well attached at both ends. Now, drums and linings. Right here, not cracked, bent, or broken, no loose or missing nuts or bolts, no oil or grease, and the lining should be at least 1/4 inch thick. If it's less, it needs to be replaced. Now, this inspection also applies to the other side of the vehicle. Now, we're gonna continue with the rear axle. The tire depth, the difference between front and rear is recaps are okay in the rear, and the tire depth is only 2/32 seconds of an inch instead of 4 on the front. 2/32 seconds, and recaps okay. Everything else is the same. Evenly worn, no abrasion, bulges, or cuts to the tread or to the sidewalls. The valve cap and stem, not missing or damaged. It's cracked or broken. Inflation, I will check with the tire gauge and refer to the owner's, to the manufacturer's specifications. PSI. And spacing, 2 wheels, evenly separated with no debris in between. And moving on to the rims, make sure the rims are not cracked, bent, or broken, or loose. Make sure there's no weld and repairs and there's no rust. Now, checking on the lug nuts. I will make sure that all the lug nuts are present, not cracked or distorted, and there's no signs of looseness such as rust or shiny threads. Now, looking at the hot oil seal and axle grease seal, see if it's not leaking any oil or grease. If wheel has a side glass, I will make sure the oil level is adequate. And this inspection also applies to the other side of the vehicle. Now we're gonna move to the rear of the vehicle. Splash guards. Oh, splash guards, mud flaps, whatever. Splash guards, properly mounted, secure, not cracked, bent or broken or missing. And then I'll be checking on my lights, make sure they're all clean and functional, visible, not cracked, broken or missing. Now the reverse light is white, the turn signals are red, the forward flash is red, the brake light's red, tail lights also red in color. All right, now we're gonna move to the side of the trailer. Come on. All right, on the side of the trailer, I'm gonna be checking on my landing gear first, make sure it's not cracked, bent or broken or missing any nuts or bolts. The crank handle, make sure it's properly mounted and secure, it's not cracked, bent or broken. And the support frame and landing pad must be properly mounted and secure, not cracked, bent or broken. I will make sure there's no illegal wheels. Now, checking on the frame of the trailer. Also, make sure it's not cracked, bent or broken, no broken wheels, holes, or other damages to the frame, to the cross members, or to the trailer floor. And then looking at the side of the trailer, make sure the lights and the reflective tapes are visible, present, not cracked, broken, or missing. Now the clearance lights on the side of the trailer are amber in color. The turn signals and the four-way flashers are also amber in color. Also checking, make sure the reflective tape is present and it is intact. And make sure the trailer doesn't have any missing rivets or holes. And the same inspection would apply to the other side of the trailer. Now we're gonna move to the rear of the trailer. We're gonna be checking the suspension, the brakes, and the axle. Same as the front, pretty much. So, all right, we're gonna start with the trailer suspension. Make sure the spring mounts are not cracked, bent, or broken. No illegal wheels since they are welded. No missing any nuts or bolts. The lift springs, not cracked, bent, or broken, properly mounted and secure, no more than a quarter missing or broken. Checking on the U-bolts, make sure they're not cracked, bent, or broken, properly mounted or secure. They're not loose or not missing any nuts or washers. And the torque arms, there's two torque arms. One is adjustable, the driver's side, the passenger side is stationary. Not cracked, bent, or broken, properly mounted and secure, no missing any nuts or bolts. Now this inspection applies to the other side. Remember, it's only 4 components here. And the front, same thing, only 4. It's only on the rears when there's 6. Okay? Make sure you make a note of that. Now we're gonna continue with the brake, trailer brakes. Starting with the brake chamber, make sure it's not leaking. Make sure it's not cracked, bent, or broken, properly mounted and secure, no loose or missing clamps. Now checking on the slack adjuster right here, must be properly mounted and secure, not cracked, bent, or broken. Properly greased. The the push rod right here must be properly mounted and secure, not cracked, bent, or broken, and should not move more than 2 inches when pulled by hand, same as the truck. Now, checking on the brake hoses and lines. Brake hoses, brake lines, no abrasion, bulges or cuts, no leaks. I will make sure they are well attached at both ends. Now, checking on drums and linings. Not cracked, bent, or broken, no loose or missing nuts or bolts. I will make sure there is no oil or grease. And the lining should be at least a quarter of an inch thick. And the same inspection applies to the other side of the trailer. Now I'm going to be checking on my trailer axle. The tire depth is 232 seconds of an inch minimum. On rear, any time of the rear, any part of the rear, recaps are okay. And the condition must be evenly worn, no abrasion, bulges, or cuts on the tread or on the sidewalls. Spacing, dual wheels must be evenly separated with no debris in between. The valve cap and stem, oops. Checking on the valve cap and stem, make sure it's not missing or loose or cracked. And the inflation, I will check it with the tire gauge. It's not that you have to do it. You're just telling that person you're gonna be using the proper tool to check. You're not just gonna go like this. You see? That's why you mentioned. All right, now I'm gonna be checking on my rims. Make sure my rims are not cracked or broken or loose, and I will make sure there's no illegal welds as well. Checking out on my lug nuts, I will make sure that all my lug nuts are present, they're not cracked or distorted, and there is no signs of looseness such as rust or shiny threads. Now checking on the hub oil seal and axle seal, see if it's not leaking like this one. See, this one is leaking oil. Obviously the oil level is not an adequate level, so I will let the school know that the needs to be fixed, right? And this inspection would apply to the other side of the trailer. Okay, now moving to the rear of the vehicle, the trailer. Make sure the splash guards are properly mounted and secure, not cracked, broken, or missing. Then we'll check in on the lights and reflective tape. Make sure all lights clean, visible, not cracked, broken, or missing. Properly mounted and secure. Now the functions. Clearance lights on top of the trailer are red in color. Now the turn signals are red. Also the four-way flash is red. The brake lights are red, and the tail lights are also red in color. And make sure I will make sure the reflective tape is present. It is intact. And now checking on my door. Make sure the door, the rails and rollers or hinges are not cracked, broken, or missing like this one. It's missing the seals, it's missing nuts and bolts. So I will let the school know that this trailer is a mess, needs to be repaired. The DMV knows it's not my truck. The DMV knows I'm using this truck from the school as a model to do my inspection, see? So I'll be fine, trust me. The truck will not pass, I am. Okay, so anyway, we'll make sure they know it needs to be repaired, and make sure there's no other damage on the trailer, and this will conclude the outside inspection.